right. Good morning. It is Tuesday, July 8th, and you are here with Mr. Wolford. This will be Road Thoughts number 6. So I'm going to try to do something a little different today. And I just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I think I just hit over 100 subscribers yesterday. So awesome. It's been a pleasure getting to know each and every one of you along my journey. I have a lot to catch up on. I think it's been about 8 days and right around 1,500 miles of riding since I left Lanier Island. So I've got literally hundreds of experiences and blessings that I feel compelled to share with you along my journey. So instead of winging it, I'm just going to try to read aloud my journal entry from today. And public reading isn't my favorite, so let me just do it for the internet. But for truly for each and every one of you that I've met along the way, I've had some kind of a special connection, and words can't really describe. So let me get into this. That's how I started it. Words cannot describe how I'm feeling at this very moment. I'm literally vibrating. My skin tingles as I write this. Almost overwhelming, similar to the sense of joy when hugging a loved one on Christmas morning. I embrace it. Tears roll down my cheeks currently, happy tears, as my new friend Liliana Marissa from Colombia described them. I snuck into the common area or the kitchen thinking it would be quiet because it was barely 0700 here at the Fisherman's Wharf Inn in Lubec, Maine. I was pleasantly surprised to see a beautiful family making breakfast burritos. I introduced myself and was welcomed by Liliana and her family, Juan David and their son. Of course, I had to tell Liliana she and my granddaughter shared a name. I got the typical response, impossible, with her beautiful Colombian accent. I left my phone in the hotel room because, again, I was just sneaking off for a cup of coffee. Now I'm scurrying back to my room in my socks to grab my phone. So I show her my favorite picture in the whole world. It's of me, my grandparents, Bill and Marty, my daughter Marissa, and 2 grandchildren. A few generations in one pic. Epic. As soon as I told her my daughter's name, her eyes lit up. My middle name is Marissa, she exclaimed. No frickin' way, I said with absolute joy and laughter, and I gave her a big old hug. Next thing you know, she's leaving me a note in the back of this very book as I joined them for breakfast. I didn't eat, still intermittent fasting daily. Side note, I feel absolutely incredible physically speaking. I'm taking care of my body, fasting, praying, and am very selective about what goes into my body. Water, coconut water, coffee, alcohol, never in excess. And organic homemade food if possible. Very selective of the proteins I eat. Must be raised right, no weird vaccines or anything like that. I probably weigh what I do when I graduated high school, and I'll be 40 in less than 2 months. Anyhow, they allowed me to set with them. I've learned on this trip to ask permission to slightly overshare. I can't help but tell total strangers about my experiences because every single one of them has been a part of it. Every step of this path has brought me rewards, blessings, lessons, and love. So as I was telling Liliana and her family my story, they listened and were excited for me. I explained how I set out to put my grandfather to rest and how it's evolved into something bigger. Liliana said something that brought me to tears right there in front of them at the table. I maintained eye contact because that's what you do when you're talking to someone. And I have no shame for those tears of joy. I know she could see my tears, but she never broke eye contact either. She witnessed me honoring my emotions and honored me in return by sharing that very sacred space with me. I just want to add for context, there was somewhat of a language barrier. She spoke nearly perfect English, however, it was not her first language. I could tell she was selective with her words, but perhaps that's the point. Some things don't require words, they just need to be felt and honored. I thanked her for what she said. After listening to me to completion, she thought for a second and said, "Wow, that's incredible and beautiful. And maybe, how your grandfather being a doctor and a motorcycle rider and an adventurer has inspired you to go on this adventure, you'll inspire your kids and grandkids to be adventurous just as you're being right now." She continued on with, "Take it all in, feel it." She closes her eyes and she smells the air. "Remember all of your experiences and know that they will forever be a part of your heart. Share with as many people as you can." I was like, oh, yeah. That's alive in me right now. It's pretty cool. Oh, she goes, "You're doing something no one does." And that's when there's tears, But she wrapped it up in a nutshell. I hadn't even really thought about any of this like that. How blessed that I am that Ben talked me into starting this YouTube channel. If for nothing else, this will be a real-time record for my descendants to see. Grandpappy was a little cuckoo. Anyways, it was a very special moment that God blessed me with, and I could have and almost missed it. I didn't fall asleep until after 0200, messing around with gathering all of my experiences so I could start this journal entry kept my mind racing. I finally had to meditate to fall asleep. It works like a charm every single time. But for some reason, the good Lord wanted me up at 0430. So I got up just long enough to look outside to see that there was too much fog to watch the sunrise on the ocean. I figured I'd try to catch it since this was going to be the last one I'd see over the Atlantic for a while. I suppose the last one I watched was just a couple of days ago from Liberty Park in New Jersey. I watched that big, beautiful ball come up over New York City and the Statue of Liberty. Awe-stricken is an understatement. Since that wasn't going to be the case this morning, I went back to bed. My body needs rest. I've covered about 1,500 miles or so since I left Linear Lake, Georgia, and I have probably another 5,000 to go before I get home in time for my daughter Faith's 21st birthday. That's my goal, baby. I'm going to have to keep a pretty steady pace to pull it off. Going to shoot for 500 to 700 miles a day, and that requires a great deal of focus, patience, precision, and endurance. Hence, sleep and a good diet. However, when the good Lord sees fit to wake you up a second time at 0630, you get your butt moving. And I'm so glad I did. If not, I would have missed that whole experience with Liliana and her family. A blessing my heart and soul absolutely, positively needed. As I sit here and reflect on the past 8 days or so since I left Georgia, I can think of hundreds of experiences that have brought me joy, truth, lessons, depth, and ultimately closer to God. Even as I write this, He blesses me with His life force energy. I'm buzzing, and I don't know how else to describe it. But let me try to account for some meaningful experiences that I've had along my journey. I suppose I should start with nearly dying outside of Asheville, North Carolina. My rear tire blew out as I was doing 85 miles an hour, passing a semi-truck on Interstate 40. One of the craziest and scariest moments of my life. And I'm only here to write about it because my Creator wants me to be, period. The people I continue to meet every single step of the way only validate that God has me on a path. I can't stop for gas without connecting with someone who is on the same frequency as I am. I continue to feel blessed and more grateful than ever. Yesterday on my way here to the West Cordy Lighthouse near Lubec, Maine, I was at a gas station, and I don't even know what town I was in. And I talked to a 90-year-old man named Dick Merrick for an hour. He was on the other side of the pump from me and said something about my Harley in his thick New England accent as soon as I killed the engine. What Dick didn't know is that I'm hard of hearing. I didn't hear a word he said. The smirk on his face told me it was probably something slick, so I proceeded to introduce myself. Next thing I know, he's pulled his truck off to the side and was waiting for me to come out from paying for my gas. We talked about everything under the sun. He lost his wife 5 years ago. They were married for 40 years. Dick told me that God is all make-believe. He brought up religion, not me. Now, normally, I would have just let that go. Not today, Satan. I respectfully challenged Dick to give the big guy another shot. I went toe-to-toe with this guy for a few minutes. I gave him a crucifix that I had in my pocket. And it was subsequent to that, he decided to wait for me. He wouldn't let me leave until I took his name, address, and phone number down, and made me promise that I'd check in on him. So I promised this lonely, feisty old man that I'd call him, and I will. Dick will never see this video. He doesn't get on the internets. He doesn't even own TV. I'm not watching 14 freaking commercials in a row, he exclaimed. Me and you both, Dick, excuse me. I said, thank you, Mr. Merrick. You've impacted my heart, and I hope you make it to Scotland one day. Last night I talked with a lovely woman named Shannon who lost her husband 36 years ago. She asked me if it was midnight yet while we were talking, and I said, I think so, why? She said, matter of fact, today's his birthday. I couldn't help but give her the biggest, strongest hug I could. I could feel her pain. Thank you, Shannon, for allowing me to be your witness. I hope you have a blast on your first solo adventure to Las Vegas. You're from Chelsea, Mass. You got this. I can go on and on. Every single one of you I've met along my path have been the most beautiful part of my journey. I can't thank you all enough for giving me the space to overshare. Thank you for tuning in and subscribing to my channel. Really, it means everything to me. All of you are part of a quest I'm on to save some lives, and that's freaking awesome. Side note, Route 9 East through Maine is one, if not the most kick-ass roads I've ever ridden. Like, wide shoulders, lots of passing lanes, minimal traffic, lots and lots of twisties, and the views are breathtaking around every single corner. This is a must ride if you're an enthusiast. I hit a top speed of about 110 miles an hour a couple of times. I've never felt so alive. The feeling of Yolanda rumble beneath my seat as I slice through the crisp Maine air is unlike anything else I've ever experienced in the world. I find myself in a state of meditation when I really get to ride. Let's face it, we really don't get to see what these machines are capable of 99% of the time. There's always a risk to mitigate when riding a motorcycle. No time for complacency or daydreaming. But out here, with a 50-foot wide blacktop shoulder to shoulder, I could see anything coming from a mile away, so I let Yolanda stretch her legs a bit. Exhilarating is an understatement. We arrived at the lighthouse just before dark, and the fog was so thick, maybe 75 foot of visibility, it felt darker later than it was. Someone named Samantha told me at a gas station that the Fisherman's Wharf is where to go for lobster in Lubec. It was phenomenal. Thank you for the recommendation. You're the reason I'm in this hotel that's attached to the wharf, right at the water's edge. Primo. Wouldn't you know it, when I got here for dinner, the hotel was booked up. However, Skylar here told me one person hadn't checked in yet, and she said she'd reach out and find out if they were going to show. I told her I'm going to eat a lobster and I'll roll those dice. I'll come back and check around 8. So I did. 10 minutes to 8, I walked in there and she was talking to the reservation. He couldn't make it. Darn. So I'm in the oceanfront suite with 3 huge windows facing the water. Thank you, God, for all my many blessings. Next stop is Fort Kent, so I can do the 4 corners properly. Thanks, PJ, for squaring me away on that one. I met him when I was talking to Dick yesterday. He's a motorcycle enthusiast from this area, and I had no idea you got to go to Fort Kent. There's a monument that you check in at with your motorcycle to let them know you're doing the route. So appreciate you, brother. I hope to see you next year. Can't wait to see you and your kid's bike, man. I got to see that road glide. All right. So we kept it short and sweet today. I'm not going to go on and on. I just wanted to share that. That's it for this week's episode. My next stop will be way up in the northernmost point of America. And then I'll be making my way across the northern United States. I'm going to see some states that I haven't seen, go to some places I've never been. There's a few people along the way. I'm going to try to check in with you guys and see how it's going, but I am on a bit of a time crunch all of a sudden. Plus, I got my dog and horse to get back to. So, love and light from here in Lubec, Maine, and Mr. Wolford signing off. Thank you.